name's Eric Saturn, and today we're going to be having a class on polearms. Now, what is a polearm? A polearm is about a 6-foot weapon that has a striking surface on one side, could have one on the back, a thrusting tip at the end, and sometimes a butt spike, which is another thrusting tip on the bottom. Now, out of pretty much all the weapons that are fought, the two biggest ones that a lot of people fight is going to be sword and shield and polearm. So there's going to be many times that as a sword and shield person, you're going to come up against a polearm person. So as with everything, these are basic classes where it's not everyone, but the majority is what I teach about. So these are great hints on when you look at someone, you can initially figure out how they're going to fight, or if they're in a stance or in a certain guard position, that you know, okay, this person's going to be either defensive or offensive, or they're going to go with a range and everything like that. Now, as with polearm, the three most important things is thrust, striking, and blocking. Okay? Polearm is a ranged weapon, which means you usually have the farthest range on your opponent. Unless you're going against another polearm, then it's almost the same. Depending upon if you're 5'10", fighting the 6'2", and the 6'2" person has longer arms, they're going to have more range on you. It's simple as that. So, what I'm going to show you are initial hints on how things are, okay? I'm a right-handed person, okay? So if I'm going to fight polearm, if I stand like this, okay, it means that I'm going to more than likely strike first, okay? The reason is my right arm is the strongest, most dominant arm. The left is pretty much guiding and focusing to a point, also able to rotate to find an angle. So I'm going to go and I'm going to strike. Now, if I want to thrust first, I have better control in my right, so I will put my right hand in back so I can control for a thrust. Okay? So when you see someone and you know that they're, say for example, a lefty, okay? If they're like this, either they're really good in striking with or thrusting with the right hand, or you know that they're probably going to strike at you first. So you might want to make sure that your peripherals are guarded and not focused directly for a thrust to a certain part of the body. Now, saying that, I tell everyone what they need to do is they need to focus on the thrust first, okay? For one main reason, this is your first chance of killing someone before they come in and everything like that. It's also going to make them have a tighter guard right away. So therefore, when they come in, they're going to come in straight in on the polearm person, because angles is what is the bread and butter for a polearm person. If you come straight in and they take a step off to the side, they have a lot of striking area. Or if they come straight in, what they're going to do is decrease the range so that you don't have thrusting capability and you only have striking capability. Okay? Also, when they come in really close, a lot of polearm people immediately don't go for a strike, but will go for a block right away. So they might get one shot and then they pretty much go into a guarding position if you get in really close. So because of range, it's an interesting thing, because for polearm people, they have the advantage at long range and at short range. Terrible. Middle range. Some say, well, isn't middle range going to be at striking range? For some, yes. It depends on how well they move and the shots that they throw. but it's going to be usually long and short as the primary and middle as their weakest. But the problem is at the middle, all they have to do is take a step back and they're at long range, or they can take a step forward and they're at close range, and now they can try and throw behind your shield, okay? So, thrusting. Whenever you want to thrust, you always want to make sure that you have good control, okay? The left hand is pretty much going to be the guiding hand, and then the thrust is going to be usually from your dominant arm or dominant hand. Now, some people, and I say this, at the beginning, you need to understand how thrust works, so you should use your dominant hand. But once you get really good, you need to start practicing with your non-dominant hand so you can go immediately into a striking move with your dominant hand without having to strike, shift, block, and then strike. So you're not going here, here, here. You can go straight from here to here, okay? But that takes time and a lot of practice. So, now, when you're striking, I have on the wall here essentially 3 spots, okay? You always want to practice for the head, okay? Don't try for the neck or anything like that. That's just too dangerous. But you want to make sure that when someone gets hit in the head, they know they got hit in the head. You don't overthrow, so you yank their neck back, have a head injury, concussion, or anything like that. You want to make sure that you can strike it and make sure that you have just enough force that, oh, yep, you hit me in the face. Very simple. Now, the other areas that I marked down that you should really focus on, okay, we have right in the face, okay? Bad example here, but pretend like these are sort of realistic. You really want to go and get towards the jointed areas of the body. Right here in the shoulder blades and down here in the hips, all right? That way when the shot comes in, the nice little angle or a small little V that's created from the jointed area, the shot will slide into it and you're going to get a good solid hit. So when you practice, you should always practice towards the face, the center part of the chest, the shoulder, and the hip, okay? The other areas for the arm and everything are better striking surfaces. So, when you want to go for this, and also go maybe more direct. When this occurs, you want to, instead of just going straight in with a shot, you want to, as you're thrusting, turn the shot a bit. Now what this does is it creates kind of like a moving arc into those parts of the body, okay? Now I'll show it to you. So for example, a shot to the face, you want to make sure that you go up and you start to turn a little bit. What this does is it's like rifling. It focuses the shot so you know exactly where it's at. It's done a lot in fencing because that's designed for thrusting primary. And they realized when you can rotate a shot in, you have better control. Because if you're trying to just throw a shot in, as you can see, it might go, you might pretend to hear, but by the time you hit, you're actually above the area. So, when you strike, you always want to strike and turn to make sure that you're focusing the shot. So, when you're up here, you want to strike and turn. Now, as you can see, I'm actually leaning in a little bit with my hips when I'm doing this. Why? It's in a couple things. Number one, it's generating a little bit more force without having me to fully do a full arm extension, which now means I'm starting to lose control a little bit. It also has the ability, instead of just going from here to here, it's twice as fast, okay? Because now you're going forward with the arm and with the hip and body of it. Boom. So this distance that can cover in 2 seconds is now covered in 1 second because you're using twice or 2 parts of your body to do it, okay? So lean in a little bit, generate a little bit more force. Now, whenever you want to throw towards the part of a body, okay? You always want to, like I said, rotate in. Now, say for example, you want to throw towards your opponent's shoulder, okay? If I'm throwing, I want to make sure that the shot is going to go into the direction of the main body, not to the direction of the outside arm, because all he has to do is kind of do that, and now all of a sudden the shot is glanced. So to do that, you rotate into the direction of the body. Okay? So I'll correct that. So if I'm going towards my opponent's right side shoulder, I want to rotate in. So therefore, if it hits, it'll glance into the body for a solid shot. Now, to assist with this, the best thing too is, like I said, when you want to step in forward, do the V movement and take a step out to the side and rotate. Now what you're doing is you're increasing the angle, you're also decreasing the distance and increasing speed. Okay? Same thing goes the opposite. So if this is the left shoulder, I would do that. V step and rotate into the body. Right side shoulder, step V shape, left foot out, rotate into the body. Same thing for the hip. Okay, now if you can do this specifically on a Pel, that's even better. Okay, get the tape, put a piece of tape on it or whatever like that. You can use your own body as an example, or you can, if you're usually fighting taller people, you can go put the shoulder at above yours, so you can practice actually going up a little bit with the shots. All that comes into play, but when you learn thrusting, the concept of striking, guiding with the left hand, stepping with movement, and rotating is very important. Now, as you can see, I am not doing a huge extension. It's not the purpose of it. When you do a huge extension, you're overstretching, getting out of step. Your form is bad. It takes a long time to recover. It's not good. So you never want to go full form extension or a full step and then do a full strike. Okay? It's better to go and do the V step initially just to try and keep people at distance. But once they start coming in, at that point, now you really want to focus pretty much on the arc movement. Because what you want to do at that point is, all right, now instead of thrusting, I'm now going to be striking. So we're going to be showing you that. So, but with the thrust, later on when you do spear, which is only thrusting, some blocking, this is where everything comes into play. 100% of your shots, thrust, thrust, thrust. So the more you can focus now the more you're going, it's going to be easier to go, oh, hey, that person's not paying any attention, and then wham, right into the hip, and they're like, oh, I hate my life. Now I can't move, and now the person who's standing up, full control of range. Life got a lot worse for the person on their knees. Okay, so that's with thrusting. Now striking. Okay, as with everything, the strike is going to be body dynamic dependent. Right-handed, left-handed, everything like that. So, say for example, a person's going to strike first. Okay? They're either going to find an area immediately and just try and hit it as fast as they can, or do a strike slide. Okay? What that means is that they're going to first strike against your shield and then slide against it. So they come down. I'll show you the striking edge so you can see it. They'll come down at an angle, and then what they'll do is turn it 90 degrees and just take a huge swing right into the side of your head. Boom, whack. Okay? It's a very easy, very quick first move. You're using your opponent's shield to guide the strike. Okay? So, when you're practicing polearm, down, turn, strike. Okay? Now, what some people do is they'll go and they'll start stepping back. When they start stepping back, they want range because they're planning on doing a lot of striking on you. Okay? Don't play their game. If you're a sword and shield person, you might want to take 2 or 3 steps to see if they're going to continue to back up all the time. If they do, stop moving, then the polearm has to stop moving, and you just wait. And as soon as the polearm gets in range, or as soon as the polearm starts to move, that's when a sword and shield person starts to come in. The first focal point is to make sure that a sword and shield person blocks the first strike of a polearm person. Block, and then ride their weapon up. So that means instead of just striking and then letting go, you're on there and you keep it pushed up and you keep going towards your opponent. Now what you want to do is you want to get your opponent into blocking form. Okay? Blocking form is where they're taking all of this as a blocking system. Boom, boom. They're so busy blocking that they can't strike. Now, a lot of people will be able to, what'll happen is they'll do a hand guard shift. They'll go from here to here. Once they get to this, this is when they do close-in strikes. Hand like this, striking from far to middle range. Short, hand rotate so they can get much closer, and they'll even get even closer to the blade so they can have better control of what's going on. And then they'll use their left side as power. And when they don't have enough force on that, that's when they generate with the hip to make sure the shot is really good. Okay? So, striking from a far distance, striking from a close-in distance. Okay? So, when you bring the shield to a polearm person, what you want to do is you want to ride the polearm up. Now, most people are like, well, why don't I just ride it down? It makes it a lot easier. Because down here, what they're going to do is they're going to do an essential step and push you back. Up here, they have no generation to really push you back. They can try and push, but all they're going to do is do more of tilting the shield than actually moving you out of place. So once you get up here, now what's happened is they have the weak areas on the bottom because it is really hard for them. They have to do this complete movement to block on the legs, okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to start striking as much as they can to keep you occupied so you strike less so they can disengage. So once you get them up here, yes, now they're in a different form, but you have capabilities of opening up leg shots on them, okay? So what's going to happen is if they throw a shot here to block, now more likely you're never really going to throw that many right side leg shots. But what they're going to do is from up here, they're going to go down to protect the leg, okay? That still leaves this leg wide open on the inside. I don't know if you can see it, but the inside right thigh has a possibility of being open. If not, what you can do is you can fake a shot down to the leg and then not land it, but go and shoot the opposite. So now you're aiming actually for this. Now they have the capability of blocking it if they see it or feel it, but then you also have the capabilities not going for the arm, but going for the head. So that is their dynamic conflict. Okay, am I going to block the head or am I going to block the arm? Okay, at which point now you're controlling the fight. Okay, now, as with everything, you need to understand how to throw shots with your non-dominant side. Same thing. After you get good with thrusting, you now need to practice thrusting with the offhand. Same thing. All right, strikes, boom. Offhand, inverted offhand. Now, the one nice thing with the inverted offhand, it is really hard to get some really good shots because this is not proper form. Your wrists don't bend or anything like that. But if you turn it like this, it's very relaxed and you can actually get more angles. That's why medium, close, okay? So you have to learn, strike here, practice, strike here. Strike here, practice, strike here. Okay, same thing opposite side. Strike here, practice, strike here. Now it's going to be weird. Like I said, you're used to your dominant hand being the right. So here I'm actually controlling more of it with the back instead of striking with the left. And I need to work on that. That's one of the things that we all have issues with. Mine is offside dominance, which is weird because I do fight, I'm a right-handed fighter, but I do fight sword and shield left-handed just to make sure I get good practice with angles and strengths. But with polearm, I have not practiced it very much, and it's a weak point for me. All right, now we're going to go with blocks, okay? Everything you do is going to be blocked with the entire stick, okay? Now, you have full visibility, all right? Against the shield, someone who has a shield, some of their visibility is ruined because of their own shield, all right? So, what you need to do is, you need to understand how to control. Blocking is just not blocking a shot. A block is how to control the other opponent's equipment, okay? So as soon as someone comes, I strike, someone comes in, and all of a sudden they start bringing their shield up. What I want to do is, hey, I know what I can do. Now remember, I have a thrusting tip at the bottom, so that's another thing you need to practice. I forgot to mention. Boom. When you get in close, take a step. Do that. Because when someone comes in, and like I said, they're bringing their shield and they're coming up, what you need to do is learn to keep it on the shield so they have pressure. And when they get close enough, you actually take the bottom half and actually lift up on the bottom part of their shield. So now instead of them doing this, they're now out of position, and at which point you now have a thrusting tip directly at the chest, the stomach, the hip, or the leg. Okay? So strike, they come in, you let them come in, swing up, open them up, strike, strike. So this is at that point when you start to need working your combinations. With straight striking, you might have a couple combinations. If you start backing up a lot, you can strike, 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 and that's great. It's not really going to be a lot of combinations, it's going to be individual strikes. Some people will be able to go and do a, like I said, hit the shield and then cross over toward the head. That's a combination. What they usually do is they do a multiple combination with either strike, block, strike, or thrust, block, strike. So, like I said, if someone's coming in here, I'll go over here like this, and I'll be like, all right, I'm going to thrust to the face. They're going to come on in. I'm going to step in to do a block, and then I'm going to lift up their shield and then strike them again. So essentially it's a thrust, block, thrust. That type of thing. It's always a game where it's a give and take. Okay? When a polearm person stops moving, that is usually when they're going to die. Because now they have no momentum, no openings on movement. So if you can get a polearm person to stop moving, that becomes your advantage. When a polearm person comes in, they might go, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to step up, and then I'm going to step like this, and I'm going to throw the exact same shot, but this time I'm going to try for the back of the head. Because now the person's closer, and if they definitely bring the shield up to block, hey, that's a great opportunity because, hey, bringing shield up and then they drop it, perfect opportunity for a second block. So what I tell people is if you're going to do that, try and block with your sword. So therefore, they don't have that capability of controlling your shield. Your shield hasn't moved, it's still down. That's when you want to come straight in, but not control their weapon. If you know that they're going to stop a lot, you go in there, bring your shield up, they stop moving, lots of leg openings, a lot of opposites, because now they have to do this. But at that point, they're also generating movement where they can block and then turn around for a strike. That's when, if they're still down here, they're not going to have that opportunity. So you're going to see a lot of them do a lot of dropping to half, or what they'll do is they'll bring one part of their hand back over to where their other hand was, and then they're going to come in, and this whole bottom part, except for the thrust, which might be for thrusting, is nothing for blocking, and now they're focusing just on this part to get the angle in for a strike. Okay? So, the goal is always to have as a sword and shield person, to have your pole arm from this level, try and get them to go this level or up to open this area first. Okay? The other reason that you can open this area up is if you bring it up and you look down, you can see if they're moving. You can see if they've stopped in flat stance, if they've stopped with right leg forward or left leg forward. Then you're like, okay, that means their right leg's forward, they're going to be throwing a lot of off shots, that type of thing. So or left side, they're going to be throwing offside shots on you, onside shots for them. So understanding whether they're right-handed or left-handed, knowing whether they're very aggressive, very stationary, or very backwards moving, all very important for movement and control and angles, and understanding how they fight, whether they're very offensive, they throw multiple shots, whether they're trying to get you out of your range. Because one of the things that you're also going to see is with this, if I got a very aggressive person fighting and they come and they start running in, I can hit their shield and push on their shield and guide them so they're no longer coming after me, they're coming, and then I push them offline. Their entire shot's gone, we have to start all over, that type of thing. If you want to go and they start running, taking a step in right away, you can also go with a butt spike right away to their leg, right to their hip, which immediately stops their movement forward, which now, if they start coming in forward, I'm not going to go with a thrust because I'm in a strike position because my right arm is forward. I'll be like, okay, and as soon as they take a step in, I go boom, aim for their right leg or their right hip, specifically right hip, boom, and all of a sudden they stop, and once they stop, they have one of two chances. If they try and block it, they're not going to block it with their sword, they're going to block it with the shield. So if that happens, boom, if they block it with the shield, their shield is out of position, I've stopped their movement, and now the left side of their head is wide open. That is when they're going to have to use their sword to block it, and at which point they're not striking on me. So I can go boom, strike, come back, and strike again, same type of thing, double pump. There's a whole bunch of different things on how different people fight. Most of the time, new sword and shield people will be very scared of fighting polearm people because it's a faster weapon, generate bigger swings. It's going to cause a bit of a fear factor, and that's fine. But when you have control, and that is the key, who has control? As a sword and shieldman, do I have control of the placement of his polearm? Yes, I win. As him with control of his polearm against my shield, all right, he's going to win. Yes, he's going to win because he's now stopped my defense, he's now created an opening, and he's controlling the fight. It's all about control. That's why for polearm people, please always practice, no matter if you're striking, step out to strike, step out to strike, strike, thrust. Make sure you do some movements, boom, out to the side, boom. Everything like that. That's pretty much the basics for polearm. After this, it gets a lot more complicated with actual, not strategy, but tactics, certain ways of always throwing combinations. And that is really your style dependent, whether you're very aggressive, whether you're very defensive, whether you're going to use the butt spike a lot for initial shots or only close in, everything like that. But I also haven't even talked about polearm against polearm. That's another whole thing. So, but the whole point there is for you to understand the primary aspects, okay? Thrust, striking, and blocking, okay? Also, where do you want to thrust at? Flat parts of the body and jointed parts of the body, okay? You always want to strike, as with everything else before, on a straight solid surface. So arm, shoulder, side of the head, leg, side of the body, anything like that. And whether you're in far range, middle range, or close range on the shots that you want to throw. But above all that, the whole important thing is control. Whoever has control will win. All right, thank you very much. This is my class on polearms, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.